The primary purpose of the Bible. Anybody know what is the primary purpose of the Bible? I'll give you a hint. It's not that we know the Bible by heart. It's that through the scriptures we get to know God. And our scriptures today is taken from the Gospel of Luke, verse 8. Almost lost my page. Chapter 8, verse 43 all the way to 48. Some people are following in the bulletin. I like that. You guys keep me on the straight and narrow. So here it is. A woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding, and she could find no cure. Coming up behind Jesus, she touched the fringe of his robe. Immediately, the bleeding stopped. Jesus said, "Who touched me?" Everyone denied it, and Peter said, "Master, this whole crowd is pressing up against you." But Jesus said, "Someone deliberately touched me, for I felt healing power go out from me." When the woman realized that she could not stay hidden, she began to tremble and fell to her knees in front of him. The whole crowd heard her explain why she had touched him and that she had been immediately healed. "Daughter," Jesus said to her, "your faith has made you well. Go in peace." And that is a beautiful story of healing. I love that story. There is so many layers to it that we don't have time in a 45-minute sermon to go through it. That's right, 45 minutes. So the unnamed woman in this gospel, in this not parable, but the unnamed woman in this miracle has suffered for 12 years. For 12 years nonstop, she was in her monthly cycle. And in her case, we can say it was a daily cycle. The word bleeding really means hemorrhaging. And she has visited many doctors to help her, but could not find any relief to her ailment. And she was looking to be healed at any cost. But you see, the real suffering was not necessarily the bleeding suffering. The cramps. The suffering she was suffering from was isolation. She was isolated because, you see, according to the Jewish law of the day, and she must have followed that law, it said if a woman is in her cycle, she has to be ostracized up until her cycle stops, and then she can reintegrate society. She was lonely. She was separated. She was away from the people she loved the most. And that for 12 years. We complain and we kick and we moan during the pandemic. Imagine doing that for 12 years, but being isolated. She was suffering. And she was looking for a healing. At any cost, she was looking for a healing. There are people that are suffering in our world, but they're not looking for a healing. They're looking for pity. Have you ever met someone that is not looking for a healing, but is just looking for pity? I'm sure you've met those people. And the problem is that she came to Jesus daring to go into public. She dared going into public to get her healing. She was not to be in the public because, you see, according to the Jewish law, she was unclean, and whoever would touch her would be unclean as well. So she dared. She did everything she could. She even broke the law to get her healing. That's how much she was suffering. It was frowned upon to do that. Her normal existence would have often been spent watching people walking around her, avoiding her house, avoiding her home, not daring to brush against her or to touch her, or just for sharing a friendly pat on the shoulder. She lived in isolation and would have been known for her uncleanness. Imagine you walk in town and people say, "Oh, that's the unclean one." She was suffering. But Jesus called her daughter. See, Jesus' healings and miracles all had one purpose in mind. It never was done willy-nilly. It never was done just because it sounded good, just because the person was pitiful. Every miracle that Jesus did was always to reintegrate people into society, to connect people within the community. Look at every miracle. Every miracle Jesus did was all to bring people back into the community, back to their families, back to their usual lives, to heal them, more than healing them physically, to heal them emotionally, spiritually, communally. And that is what is so fascinating, that nowadays in Christian communities, people are ostracized because they don't follow the clear directions. I was told that a little girl that had leukemia for about 4 years, now going into a Christian school, parents don't want their children to hang out with her. I know. Christian school. Someone suffering from a leukemia for 4 years. And she's being ostracized by Christians. And Jesus said, "No, you come to me." Jesus set a precedent of the time where the religious people would not have nothing to do with that woman. Think about that. Nowadays, we're still repeating the same thing. People are suffering. I'm not saying you, I'm saying the community at large. Christianity, as in Christendom. These two women, because there was a little girl earlier in the miracle, but I'm not going to talk about her now. She was unnamed. This woman was unnamed. But Jesus gave them more than a name. He gave them a family by saying daughter. Jesus gave them a family. Gave that woman a family. Daughter. It's interesting to note that even from the biblical time, a woman having her cycle is considered unclean. But a man bleeding on the battlefield is considered a hero, brave, courageous. A woman is being ostracized for her ability to give life. A woman is ostracized for something she's not responsible for. She carries in her the miracle of life. And she's being ostracized because of that. Isn't that weird? Isn't there double standards in our times and in these times where a man going to war and bleeding is considered a hero, but a woman being able to conceive, it's considered unclean? Instead of being repulsed, Jesus responds to her with peace, acceptance, and grace. You see, she is called to go back into the community, and we are called to go back into the community. We can all relate, man or woman, to this woman in our story, where her healing, her ailment, her disease, if you will, prevented her from being connected. Some people live in shame. Some people live in shame. They need healing. Because they live in shame, they ostracize themselves. They put themselves in a little box away from people. It is understanding of this story, the understanding of our own need for healing, that can help us and go and reach out to those who are isolated. It is our responsibility to partner with the people that need healing, just like we need healing. This is why we say the statement of Treaty 6. There are people that were ostracized for just being who they are. They were mistreated for just being who they are. They were treated less than what God intended to be. So because we are part of that healing, and we want to bring them back into community, we need to heal our own wounds, our wounds of prejudice, our wounds of racism, our wounds of I'm better than you, therefore you deserve less than me. A person who's wounded wounds other people. What's interesting is that this story is not saying that if we have enough faith, God will heal us. But this story says, if we have enough faith, we will be back again into a community. If we have enough faith, we can heal our own wounds and go back into the community and help other people healed. Our hymn was saying, as we are healed, we're bringing healing, or something like that. As we heal, we are healed. We are called to heal. Healing does not always look exactly like we are hoping for, but sometimes healing looks like acceptance, belonging, and connection. Sometimes healing looks like not letting fear control us. Sometimes healing looks like having healthy boundaries. Sometimes healing looks like knowing our worth. Sometimes healing says, I know what my purpose is. We are called to be healed. Love looks like a touch from a friend or a loved one in a moment of shame, hopelessness, and deep pain to draw us out and remind us that we are loved and called children of God. Reach out and touch the robe of Jesus today and ask for the reminder, the grace, and the knowing that comes from Him. Let Christ find you wherever you are and meet you there and at your lowest lows and your highest heights. Look for healing in such a desperate way that you are ready to do anything and everything. We are called to bring healing into this world, no exception. We can all do it. Not only that, but we can all heal our own wounds. There's a saying, hurting people hurt people. Don't bring hurt into the world more than is necessary. Bring healing to yourself and to the world. And like I was saying earlier, worship is for that. It's for us to come and get healing. I can't make this any better. Amen.